Hi, Steven. Welcome to Struggle to Strength.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So good to have
Good.
you with me.
Thank you.
So, I'm Mary Beth Simone, and I am the founder and CEO of Niche Partnership Consulting. I teach entrepreneurs and professionals how to create their contingency plan to
Good.
empower their second in command to keep business and life running smoothly in an emergency. And my business was started as a result of a personal struggle. And through this series, I aim to highlight the strengths that were developed by my guests' struggles that they experienced on their way to entrepreneurship or in life. If you are with us live, please say hello to us in the comments or drop an emoji in there and put your questions in there, and we will answer them uh, as time allows. And if you're watching the replay, please feel free to put your questions in the comments and we will come back and answer those questions. So, Steven, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for
We are going to
having me.
focus, yeah, we are going to focus our conversation on how you found strength in perseverance. And before we dive in, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and your business?
Sure. So I own Northstar Financial. I'm the CEO and president of Northstar Financial, which is an independent registered investment advisor. We are a comprehensive financial planning firm, and that I started in 1996 after 4 years of experience in the insurance industry. So I've been doing this almost 30 years now, and 26 years, as our own business. And it's been an exciting ride as a whole. So.
Well, I loved when we talked about your background a couple weeks ago, and I met you. First, I was introduced to you through Lauren Cutterback, who
Yep.
works for you. And
Yep.
Lauren and I are connected on LinkedIn. So, shout out to LinkedIn connections and how you can expand your network that way. And so it was a fascinating conversation that we had about your journey to starting Northstar Financial. And I thought that that would be helpful for the listeners to think about everything that it entailed, especially now with the Great Resignation and so many
Right.
people leaving corporate or retiring early to start
Yep.
their own businesses. So can you take us back to when you decided that you wanted to go out on your own? And what was happening at work that made you feel like it was time for you to start your own business?
Sure. So, as I said, in 1992, I started working for Metropolitan Life as an insurance agent, which was at that time a very cold call, work intensive kind of just pick up the phone and call people kind of business. I was doing fine. And then around 95 ish, there was an episode with MetLife where MetLife got in trouble for doing some sales practices, selling life insurance policies to registered nurses. We had done these videotaping. They thought it was a great idea, so they had us videotape within our offices. Apparently, I had one of the better videotapes. And when I sat with my manager and regional VP, and they were asking me, what I felt about it, I came out and said that I felt that it was unethical, and that it wasn't very transparent. And that wound up being sort of the beginning of the end of my time at MetLife. I had some disappointment in what I felt was their ethicality at the time. And they also, at that point, owned State Street Research, which was a mutual fund company, and I was doing more and more work on that side of things. And I had a very good friend at the time, who's a good friend to this day, who said, "I'm not sure why you're not an independent financial planner." And basically I said, because I don't know what that is, because Met did a really good job of keeping you insulated from the rest of the financial planning world. So he introduced me to a broker-dealer in Waltham, Mass, Commonwealth Financial, who I went and I had a conversation with, and it opened up the horizon of what I could be, how I could work with clients the way that I felt I needed to, that I could stick within my own foundation of ethicality and transparency. And so 4 months before I was getting married, I went home to tell my wife that I had a fantastic idea that I was going to start a firm of my own. She was pleasantly surprised. And my famous last words to her was, "Trust me, I'll make it work." And that was the beginning. I gave my notice in June of 1996, and I started Northstar in June of 96, and got married in October, and off we were running. So
Wow, wow. So that seems like such a heavy lift to go from working in financial services, financial planning, and then to start your own business with all of the regulations and the rules. Can you talk us through some of the obstacles that you faced?
sure. So in the beginning, I was thinking about that. In the beginning was kind of one of these things of I was young. I was 26 years old. You could almost say I didn't know better as to what things were going to be in front of me. I had a massive amount of energy, a massive amount of pride, if you will, right? That I was going to make it work. I often use the Cortez's ship kind of. I burned everything behind me, and I had nowhere to go but forward. So literally, I started with a drafting table and a phone, and I went back to dialing, all the time, cold calling. Funny enough, moved from my apartment to my attic, and then ran the company out of my attic for a while. And I would go back to saying that at the time, I didn't know better, right? So I didn't really know about all of the regulatory hurdles to go over and everything else. I just said, I want to be able to have my own way of doing things. I don't want anybody to tell me how I can or cannot do something from how I work with clients. And I wanted to run my practice in an extremely ethical manner. And that was the driving force at the time. So even if I had known about these hurdles, I'm not quite so sure it would have stopped me from doing anything. There was an immense amount of learning on the fly, which I don't think these days is really probably how a lot of people wind up in that position. They probably work for a firm first, get an understanding of what they're doing, and then go. For me, it was trial by fire. I was out there and I was hustling, and that was the beginning of my company.
That's awesome. And then when we talked before, you were sharing with me some different significant hurdles that came up in terms of partnerships and then dissolving partnerships. Can you talk us through that? Because I think that a lot of people think, oh, a partnership could be great, but it is challenging though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I look at my business as sort of very succinct stages that I went through. In 2002, I decided that I didn't want to cold call anymore. I didn't want to do business in that manner anymore. That I really wanted to acquire somebody else's existing practice. And at that stage in 2002, it was the very beginning of financial planning firms openly selling on an open market to other financial planners. That led me into interviewing a seller here in Pennsylvania. So I was living in Massachusetts. My brother-in-law lived down here outside of Philadelphia. I thought it would be great to live near him. A seller came up. One thing led to another, and I ultimately acquired that practice. And funny story, they were in a captive agency insurance situation again. which I set everything aside to say, okay, I've got this goal of acquiring a practice. I can deal with that. That created its own set of hurdles as I ultimately exited that, because I found the same philosophies I had left at MetLife to be embedded at this location as well, which led into a lot of real financial hurdles at that point, which was one of the struggles that the theme of this is I came to learn that things like an agreement, an asset purchase agreement, is only as solid as your ability to financially back it. So I was very naive to think that, well, there's an agreement that says X and that's how it is. And as I left this insurance company, they basically said, well, we'll fight it out, which led into a very difficult financial period of time for the company, of which we survived through. But I knew from that I wanted to continue to acquire practices, other firms. And that led into my bringing on a partner at the time, a good friend of mine who had been involved in acquisitions in the electronics industry, liked the idea of acquiring at that point in time. And we started to do that. And we started to acquire a number of practices until the second, probably most difficult period of time in the company was when we did a particular deal in Connecticut that, in hindsight, we were more focused on the growth strategy than we were the philosophy of making sure they were a great match. So there was an opportunity of being able to bring another company in under, but the person was not ethical. Person was not a good person at all. That led into another period of time of firing that individual. That individual moved forward and broke their agreement with us and began to take clients back. Led into another legal battle, which was another interesting period of time. And that ultimately was the end of the partnership because of the financial constraints that fighting that legal battle created for the company. And we had to make the decision that headcount had to be cut, and my partner was one of them. So, that was a very difficult period. I very much enjoyed having the individual as my partner at the time. He was phenomenal. He was very dynamic in the way that he thought, and we worked very well together. But the thing with partnerships is you both need to be able to bring skills to the table. His particular skill was in the acquisition side of things, and when it looked like we weren't going to be doing that anymore, that was the end of his, at least for some period of time, that was the end of his position. So I give him great credit for coming to me and saying, I got to go, which was, very honorable of him, because I didn't want to do it, but it had to be done. So,
yeah, that must have been challenging and a little bit painful and stressful to go through that. And as you were navigating these obstacles, did you have any techniques or practices that you use to keep your motivation high, to keep moving forward in the business, to not get discouraged?
yeah, it's funny, for almost 30 years now, probably really since I started the business, I have a whiteboard. And on my whiteboard, I have one phrase that I have on there, which some people find weird in a way, but I have a phrase where I say, never be satisfied. And I've had people say, wow, that's really that's a difficult phrase to keep reminding yourself of. And for me, it isn't difficult. It's more a reminder that I think that every day, as a person, as a planner, as a business owner, there is something that I can learn to be better at what I do in all of those phases than I was the day before. So the thing that has always motivated me is this quest to continuously be better, right? To push myself on an individual level, a professional level, to just get better and move forward every day and do better things. So that's, in the
Yeah, I
deepest,
think
darkest moments, that's, that really has
yeah,
been the thing that has driven me.
I think that's something that all business owners can relate to is just the incredible learning journey that we're all on, regardless of our particular profession.
Yeah.
It's such a uh, deep self-awareness journey, and then in addition, like the technical
Yep.
aspects of what we're trying to create.
And it never
So,
ends. I mean, every day brings
right.
its new set of challenges as your company evolves from where it began to, where it is now. Um, I now have, a number of employees that when I first started, I never had. That brings itself, a whole new set of things that we need to deal with. We are larger with more clients, more deliverables. So all of those things bring their own set of things to deal with. So I think as a business owner, those ever evolving changes are the things that keep you very plugged in and very, energetic every day to go in and figure out what's going to happen today and how am I going to tackle it. So,
Right, right. And the environment's always changing, like the regulatory
yep,
and, even currencies are changing and
yep.
things that we could have never expected.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at this industry and people may go, well, that's you're in a fee-based industry, so you can rely upon your revenue and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you have a service level you need to bring, an advisory and an investment management level you need to bring. And on top of that, you have a market that is certainly emotional all the time that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Yeah. Now, if anyone's watching live, feel free to let us know in the comments. And if you have a question, just drop it in the comments and we will answer your question for you. Um, so, when you think about everything that you have experienced on the journey, is there anything that surprises you that you encountered that you never saw coming as part of this process?
Yeah, I think what I had mentioned earlier is a large one for me, which is um, that you can enter into agreements, you know, honorably and ethically, but at the end of the day, your ability to use that agreement, right, for the purpose that it was in there, is really driven by your ability to financially back it. And that was something that sort of naively, I probably went into some things early on in my career where I said, well, we both have entered an agreement and it spells these things out and that's how it is. And then when it came time to say, yeah, but that agreement says this, you get to the point of people or companies saying, well, go ahead and do something about it. And that for me was a letdown, right? I'm an exceptionally ethical and honorable individual, and those are characteristic traits that I hold high. And when people brush those off when it comes to an agreement, you're kind of like, that's not right. So I have learned that over the years. The other thing which I talk about often as well, my father and I talk about this often as well, is when you're a small business owner, especially if you start early in life, like for me, I had 4 years at MetLife and then I was on my own from there. You aren't plugged into any sort of management training, right? You have no time period of learning how to manage people. So you start a lot of times just as yourself. Next thing you know, you have employees and you're learning on the fly about how to manage, about relationships with people who work for you and whatnot without any previous training that you had behind you. And that can be really challenging and interesting as well. So those are two of some of the bigger things. And then when you get to the point of, as you get larger as a company as a whole, and now you're dealing with running your business, servicing clients, managing your business, managing your people, and each one of those things has multiple pieces to it, then you're learning how to juggle, how to delegate, how to trust in people's ability to handle things that maybe you used to do on yourself. So yeah, it's always a learning curve.
Yeah, it can become really complex really quickly, I imagine, especially if you don't have like a lengthy corporate background where you might have developed some of those skills.
Yeah,
So
and then
yeah.
it's sort of seeking out mentors in your own way who can maybe help you through those things to figure out, how do I go about doing this? So yeah.
Yeah. Um, so if someone were to come to you, maybe the same age as when you decided to start your business, or
Right.
even maybe someone who is taking early retirement and wants to go out on their own, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I would say do it.
Good for
um,
you.
at the end of the day, I can't picture doing anything else other than owning and running my own company. Um, your ability to chart your own path for me is exceptionally important. My success or non-success is directly correlated to the time and effort and work that I put into it. Um, and I would mention that as well to people, which is it is correlated to that stuff, and you do have to put time and effort and energy in, and success as a whole doesn't happen overnight. It is a long evolutionary process that takes time to get to. Um, but I can't think of doing it any other way other than owning my own company. And I think that people who are thinking that, um, if they have the fortitude to do it, should make the leap and give it a go, right? Um, and if it succeeds, it does. If it doesn't, you can always pick yourself up and move forward doing something else. But taking that chance, I think, is very much worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like entrepreneurship is such a great education, that even if it doesn't work out, it still is a step in the right direction for wherever you're going next.
Yeah, I think, and my father has said this multiple times, that um, the experience of being a small business owner is probably more worthwhile than any MBA you could go get. That the things that you ultimately learn over time of having to deal with maybe would be the things that you would have learned about, sort of through that degree kind of program. But it is so rewarding to be able to say, I took a company from here to here. I've made it profitable. I've provided for, my employees and their families. There's just so many great things about doing it, and it's very
Yeah.
rewarding. So, yeah.
So, can you tell us what your approach was for getting mentorship, and if there were any particular organizations that you relied on to
Right.
help you grow as a business owner?
Yeah, for me, it's been more individuals that I know, uh, both in the industry and outside of the industry, who I have selectively tapped for help, when I have needed a whiteboard, a mental whiteboard, to go to somebody and say, I need all of this stuff is in my head. I need to get it out of my head and out and think about it. So there's probably a handful of people. Obviously, my dad's one because I talk about him all the time. My wife is one that I can go to and say, "Here's what's going on. What do you think?" And then I've got some select friends that I can go to who have both experience within managerial programs, let's say, or just are good sound people for me to say, look, this is what's going on, and what do you think? I think finding these confidants that you can have, that surround you, that you can go to at any point in time that you've got something on your mind, I would recommend highly to anybody starting a business, which is find those people that you trust, who you think are as ethical as you, who share your same kind of vision of how to be with people, and then have those and have them at the ready, because without a doubt there's going to be things that come up that you need to bounce off of other people.
Yeah, I think that that was one of the most challenging parts for me moving from corporate to entrepreneurship was not having a sounding board,
Yeah.
group of people, that were easily at my disposal. I couldn't just get up and, pitch an idea to somebody.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yep.
that makes a lot of sense.
I would say that for me, what has worked well is when I'm on the road, if I'm on a client visit and I'm either driving to it or I'm flying to somewhere. I know a lot of people will take flight time as an example, as, oh, I'm going to get a whole bunch of work done while I'm on that flight. I use flight and drive time as a period of time to sort of mentally take a step back and just think, right? Think through the long range plan, think through the near term stuff that's going on, think through the problems and issues that we may have going on at the moment. And sometimes you need that quiet block of time to take a step back away from everything, and just think. And which would be another thing that I would recommend that people do as well. Find that time that you can set aside to just think about your business, think about your life, and plot things out, because it can get overwhelming at times. So
I love that idea because it's important for a business owner to step out of the execution mode.
yeah,
And we can easily get really stuck there. So I love that advice because it's an opportunity to be more strategic and to take a break from the doing.
right. Right. And then on the flip side, I have said to other people who have been thinking about starting a business and whatnot, of sometimes you can get so analytical in what you're trying to put together that you never make the leap of going a certain, whether it's starting your business or taking your business in a certain direction. At some point you have to have faith in your idea, your way of being, your work ethic, your drive, and go with things. It doesn't always work out. As you and I were talking earlier, there are things that can go wrong and probably invariably will go wrong. Um, Having that long range plan, like I'm talking like a planner now, which is having your long range goals, is exceptionally important. Be flexible enough that things are going to change in between point A and B.
Exactly, exactly. And basically, like trusting the process that you
Mhm.
will be wise enough to adjust, pivot, modify
Yep.
to make that goal come true, as
Right.
you learn more.
At the core, you are the process, right? So you have to have faith in yourself. Why did I do this? What was the goal that I set out to do? Yes, the goalposts have changed along the way, but what hasn't changed is who you are as a person. Those are your strengths. So stick with those strengths, and the rest of it will ultimately come. Um, for me, be a good person, do good things, do good work, treat your employees extremely well, really care about your clients. If you stay focused on these core things, the rest will come.
Yeah, I love that. So, speaking of your clients, do you have a certain niche in Northstar Financial? What is your ideal client?
So having grown by acquisition, we weren't necessarily marketing wise selective of certain particular client profiles. What has happened though over the years through the acquisitions we've done is there is a subset of clients that a few subset of clients that we have developed through these groupings, if you will, of doing these acquisitions. So we do a lot of work with senior executives, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, small business owners, and then a large block of both active and retired military that we deal with as well. So I will say that our mantra, or my mantra especially, is if you want to make a material difference in your life and you come to me, I will help you. I don't care what you have already. I don't get, just the fact that you want to make a difference in your life. I have the knowledge, and I will assist you. And that's the kind of people that we're looking for. People that want to work with us hand in hand, that are looking for us to be their guiding advisor, right? Both financially and what finances mean in your life in general. We probably aren't the best suited for people who are just, individuals who are just like, I want to make a return and that's all I care about you doing. We're very holistic in the way that we do our planning, in our advisory side of our business. We are very ingrained with our clients. So if you want an ongoing guiding hand in your life, that's the kind of people we love dealing with. So.
That's awesome. And could you tell us a little bit about the makeup of your team?
Yep. So I have our team right now is Julia Randall is my co-planner on. We pretty much work on all clients together, and then there's Thomas, who is our paraplanner, who supports Julia and I. There is Melissa, who handles all of our operations work. There's Javante, who does all of our admin as far as service requests and paperwork and whatnot. Lauren does business development. Then we have Alex out in Denver, who is our advisor in our Denver office. So there's 3 advisors, 1 paraplanner, and then everybody else is support staff from there.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more about Northstar Financial and maybe if they have questions for you?
Yep. So calling us is always a great way. So 800-220-2161. Email is one of my favorite routes because I can do emails late at night and whatnot. Steve@nstarfinco.com. Through our website, you're able to get sort of a link that then would send us a message. So that's NorthstarFCI.com. And then LinkedIn, you could send me a message on LinkedIn, which is another phenomenal way. So there's many different ways of reaching out to us. So whatever way, we are here to help.
Okay, that's great. And I will put all of that information in the comments after we wrap up. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us today. And I think that your story will likely inspire somebody to take that next step that they have been considering.
I hope so, because I think taking that step is phenomenal. And I don't think people will regret it. So take the chance, believe in yourself, move forward.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for the inspiration.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Take care.